Okay. Okay, if I can call the room to order, please. It's Tuesday, 2nd of November, 2 p.m. This is the company's committee. If I can ask mobile phones to silent, please. To the agenda, item 1, are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies for absence received from Councillor Ian Stokes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, item 2, are there any disclosures of interest in the room or dispensations? Any disclosures of interest? Okay, just as a reminder, you can register a disclosure of interest or a dispensation at any time during today's meeting. Item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of September 2021. Are there any comments on the minutes of that meeting as to whether they're a true and accurate record of that day?
Chairman, if I may, it's been brought to my attention that Councillor Ian Stokes was missed off the attendance for that meeting. That has subsequently been rectified, so we'll show on the set of minutes on the website.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any other comments? Okay, if I can have a proposer for those minutes. Thank you, Councillor Dawson, and the seconder. Thank you, Councillor Whittington. All those in favour that this is a true and accurate record? Any votes against? And any abstentions? Just 2 abstentions and 4 in favour, so that is carried. That is a true and accurate record of the meeting. Thank you. Item 4, updates of the previous meeting. Any comments on the updates from the previous meeting? Councillor Ashley Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. It's not on the action sheet, but it is on page 8 of our agenda. It was decided that Councillors Barry Dobson and Robert Reid would be appointed as directors to Orbers Ridge Management Committee. I know that Councillor Reid has been added on the 21st of September, but not Barry Dobson. Can anyone explain why?
Karen Bradford.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm assuming that is because of a change in portfolios, but if I could seek further guidance from the leader, please.
Councillor Kellam-Cook.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so obviously there was a slight change around of the cabinet portfolios, so therefore Councillor Barry Dobson wasn't added at that time, and obviously there's a report before us today to appoint new directors.
Thank you for that. Are there any other comments on the action sheet or the updates from the previous meeting? No? Okay, then I'd like to move on. Item 5, ESK. This is the appointment of directors, and this is with Councillor Robert Reid or Councillor Kellam-Cook.
I think it's a bit of a cabinet bingo, because I know Councillor Wotton is also here with us today. So obviously I am happy to present that following a bit of a reshuffle of the cabinet. Obviously the recommendations before you is that we appoint Councillor Robert Reid, Councillor Adam Stokes, Councillor Paul Wood and Claire Moses as directors to Environment SK Limited. And recommendation 2, that the Companies Committee is asked to approve the appointment of Councillors Robert Reid, Councillor Adam Stokes, Councillor Paul Wood, Ken Lyon and Claire Moses as directors to Environment SK Commercial Services Limited. Thank you.
Are there any questions in the room? Councillor Philip Knowles.
Thank you, Chair. While I welcome my friend Robert Reid becoming director of every company that's in the pot to become a director of, I thought a few months ago housing and planning were together, and housing was considered to be that important because of the problems that housing had, that it would be separated from planning so that somebody could concentrate on housing in totality. And now we find that that's not the case. Does that mean that housing takes a lesser stand, or that housing isn't as important as it was deemed to be 3 months ago, or what? Thank you.
I think that's perhaps a question for Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, obviously, those cabinet portfolios are still of the same importance, and these are just directorships to the companies in addition to those responsibilities.
Councillor Reid, did you want to add to that?
Thank you. I share the concern. Very constructive question it is too. I have looked at my portfolio. I have taken reference to the workload, and I have a plan, a work plan to actually change some of my duties over the next 3 months as well, which will diverge. But I would like to give every assurance in the room that housing remains my number one and first priority. I'd also like to use the opportunity just for a clarification. And that clarification is around conflict of interest. I took a reference with both the chief executive and the leader about this. And then I have a paper that's coming forward that is now well prepared on the assistant garden scheme. And it gave me a good room to actually review what the situation might be. I therefore took separate guidance, and I'm really pleased to say that I found Alan Robinson of particular support and help. And this is what he's actually said, and I think it's very important. Thank you for the question about a conflict of interest between your roles as cabinet member with responsibility for housing, and in particular case of grounds maintenance requirements for the HRA. The decision you have already made in good faith, any further decisions on funding of ESK will be budget decisions made by the full council, and I cannot foresee any individual decision you as a cabinet member would be asked to be made to be of conflict. Therefore, maybe some of the decisions that the cabinet may have to make, which you have been asked to declare an interest, but these would only be by exception. And my advice would be to take advice from the team in this event. Thank you.
Councillor Ashley-Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. I have 4 questions. Do you want them one at a time or all at once?
I'd prefer not to have a dialogue, if that's okay. If they're unrelated, I'd prefer to take them all in one go.
Thank you. First of all, I wonder if we could have any background on why Councillor Mosley has resigned from the Environment SK board and from his portfolio. Secondly, I'm 99.99% sure that councillors don't get any remuneration as directors of companies. Could you please fill in the 0.01% of doubt? I'm asking this because somebody asked me, and I wanted to be able to say with confidence that councillors don't get anything else for being a director of our companies. The third one is I welcome the inclusion of an independent councillor on the board of one of these committees at last. I think it's odd that Councillor Wood has been chosen. As far as I know, he's never served on the Environment Committee nor shown a particular kind of passion in this area, but I'm very pleased that, I'm not going to challenge it because I'm very pleased that the opposition has been allowed at least one place on one of these committees, and I applaud that, and I hope that it will happen on the other boards of the other companies very soon too. Finally, I wanted to clarify from the council side who acts as the day-to-day client role for Environment SK, to whom, who within South Kesteven District Council is employing Environment SK as the contractor, and where do they sit within the organisation? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'll take those questions in order. In terms of Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley resigning off of Environment SK Limited, that's because he resigned from his cabinet position, and I wish him all the best. And obviously he remains a valued member of the Conservative group. I can confirm that no member directors get any form of allowance from the companies. I was delighted to nominate Paul Wood for this. I believe he's got good skills, good business interest, And I think he's got the right personality and teamwork to work alongside the other directors and also to work with this company's committee as well. In terms of the client role for Environment SK, that is Gary Smith as the director.
Councillor Philip Knowles.
Yes, just following on from Councillor Reid's comment, the problem of the assisted garden scheme, we asked a question in July, we did not get an answer. We've had an answer in the last week or so, which is like 4 or 5 months on, which does not address the question. And so the next, I know it's not for this committee, it was at the Communities and Rural Committee or Rural and Communities Committee that question was asked, but it will be raised again. So that matter is still on both sides of the argument, still with one person. So the housing person responsible is still, as far as that information is concerned, is still responsible for the housing system. Now, I'm going to bring that up at Rural and Communities, as you would expect, but there is, on both sides of that discussion, there is an inadequate and totally irrelevant answer that's been given to a question. It's not answered the question in one little bit. The question was very specific and they've not got that answer. So that will be brought up at Rural and Communities and there will be a conflict of interest at that point. But I'm willing to take it up at that point.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions in the room? Okay, I have a couple of questions. I just want to push you a little bit further on Ashley's point about the client role. What Ashley's aiming at there is there a clear separation of responsibilities between Gareth Smith acting as the client and ESK and ESK's directors being Robert Reid, Adam Stokes, Paul Wood, Claire Moses, etc., Ken Lyon acting as the supplier. Can you assure us that there's a proper separation or Chinese wall between those two responsibilities, so that this is genuinely a commercial company and not some sort of insider arrangement there? And just one other thing on Claire Moses. Claire Moses, I see, is the head of revenues and benefits. Can you just comment a little bit more? I know she's not in the room today, but can you just comment a little bit more on why Claire Moses? Does she have the spare bandwidth to do this role? And what she's going to bring to her directorship there. Perhaps if we can start with the first question, Gary.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I mean, I can assure you that when I fulfil from the perspective of the council, the client side, I'm very clear on that distinction, that role of responsibility from that of Environment SK as the provider. We're very clear in how we operate that and engage with each other. As you probably expect, whilst there are elements of strategic discussions with ESK and particularly around specifications and sort of high level elements, most of our client side engagement is at a very operational level, with people in my team liaising directly with supervisors in Environment SK, because some of my team will do checks around the work that's been completed and ensuring it's up to standard and raising any issues that come up. Of course, we also get feedback from both councillors and the public, and that's again another way in which we do that. So there is a clear understanding of the distinction of those two elements of the functions. Clearly, your role here as Companies Committee is more on the shareholder side, which is another role again, and that's understood. I hope that provides some reassurance, but happy to answer any further questions.
And Karen Bradford.
Thank you, Chairman. Claire's been with us now. She's our head of revenues and benefits. She's been with us now for nearly a year. Excellent lady. In reference to her experience she brings to the job. She has exceptional and robust IT skills, very good, strong leadership, good customer care ethos, and she's a robust leader of people. So the people skills, the IT skills, alongside that, the financial skills as well. Of course, she's running the house revenues and benefits service, so she's completely across all finances. Incomes, expenditures, debts, recovery. So I think she's got a good skill set which will complement the other members and officers on that board.
just comment on my second point on that? Does she have the bandwidth to do this role? Because I would have thought the head of maybe forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, but I would have thought the head of revenues and benefits is quite a busy role.
It is a busy role, without a doubt. Like I said, she's been in the job now for over a year, and she's driven quite a lot of significant improvements in the service within that time. She considers that she does have the bandwidth to do this, and she also feels like it's something that she would like to engage in to further develop her skills for the council. So it's something that she wants to invest further in by supporting the organisation.
Fine, and I have one final question. Apologies, so I didn't add this first time. Environment SK Commercial Services is obviously part of this as well. That's a dormant company. Do the incoming directors believe that will start trading in the next year? Ken Lyon.
So difficult to say at this stage, as Councillor Reid alluded to, the new directors will be developing a new business plan for Environment SK and linked to Environment SK's commercial services very shortly, and that will be presented back to Companies Committee at the next opportunity. So we'll cover that off at that point then.
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow up on your point, Environment SK Limited is a technical company. It can only do 20% of its work outside the council, the council's activities. Therefore, I believe that Environment SK Commercial Limited, whatever it's called, was for the 21%. So if we get to the stage where we're doing so much work outside of the council that it's illegal under the technical arrangement, then that kicks in and that takes up the extra slack. So my question to that would be, currently, how much of the roughly how much of the Environment SK Limited portfolio of work is over and above what the council is doing?
That's slightly off topic, but I think I'm going to allow that because it is an extension of my question. I suppose the question is, how near are we to needing this company?
So we're currently at 9% at the present time.
Okay, fine. Are there any other questions in the room? Councillor Bob Adams.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Does this company come under the umbrella of a technical company as far as local authorities are concerned?
Lyon.
Yeah. So Environment SK Limited is a technical company. Environment SK Commercial Services Limited isn't a technical company, but the main company, Environment SK Limited, that is active is a technical company.
Does that take it out of the 20% bracket, Chairman? Or does it put it firmly and squarely within that 20%?
So I think Councillor Stokes just indicated that it was currently approximately 9% of it, so it's still well within the 20% bracket at the moment for external work.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Moving back to the agenda and the appointment of directors, does anybody else have any other questions on these recommendations? Okay, can I have a proposer, please? We need to vote on this. Councillor John Dawson and a seconder, Councillor Mark Whittington. All those in favour, I'll take the recommendations together. All those in favour of those recommendations going forward? And any against? And any abstentions? We have one abstention, but that is both of those are carried. Okay, I'd like to make some progress. Item 6 is again about directors, and this report is with Councillor Cook.
I'm happy to present. Thank you, Chairman. So obviously recommendation 1 is that the Companies Committee is asked to approve the appointment of Councillor Robert Reid as the Director to Orbers Ridge Management Company Limited and Gravitas Housing Limited. Thank you.
Councillor Ashley Baxter.
The first obvious question is, why are we proposing the appointment of Robert Reid to a Director of Orbers Ridge Management Company when he is already a Director of Orbers Ridge Management Company?
I think, Mr. Chairman, it was a reaffirming the appointment because, as Councillor Cook said earlier, in between the Companies Committee in September and today's agenda, there has been some changes to the cabinet portfolios. So that hence the need to change the portfolio from Councillor Dobson as one director, and reaffirming that Councillor Reid will then be not only a director of Orbers Ridge but also Gravitas Housing. If you recall, Orbers Ridge is the management company that oversees the Warriors Lane development. So it's just to reaffirm that there's a complementary arrangement now with Robert Reid being the director of both those companies.
I would say that probably sounds a bit bureaucratic, in my opinion.
If you can just remind us, who are the other directors of these two companies?
Well, as in the report on page 16, so in terms of Gravitas Housing Limited, it is myself and also Richard Wiles, and similarly with Orbers Ridge, obviously because Councillor Barry Dobson is resigning off of both.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Knowles.
Thank you, Chair. Just obviously, it's felt that there is a need for a new director of Gravitas Housing. Is this because that the performance of it is so disgraceful that it can't even make money out of building and renting and selling out houses? And is this so that the new incumbent can turn the business round and make it into a profit when he's doing all the other things as well, of course? It brings to the mind the Mikado, Lord High, everything else, but I won't go any further on that. But is he going to turn it around and make it into a profit? Because that's what you really need from this, because the performance of the company so far has been unfortunately very poor.
I think you're jumping ahead on the agenda a little bit here to perhaps the next item, but Councillor Cook, if you just want to just confirm the thinking there.
Well, obviously, I'm happy to take questions on the Warriors Lane development in the next agenda item. In terms of the director's appointment, obviously, Councillor Barry Dobson is now solely focusing on leisure following his resignation as deputy leader. Therefore, Councillor Reid and I and Richard Wiles will be tasked to ensure that this scheme is finished and completed.
Are there any other questions in the room? Councillor Ashley Baxter.
Yes, just following up and asking for clarification. I think I heard the leader say that Robert Reid was to be appointed to Orbers Ridge Management Company, which he is already a director of. Because Councillor Barry Dobson is stepping down or resigning. Barry Dobson hasn't been a director of Orbers Ridge, so he can't resign from anything.
Just for clarification, I did, after I said that, I did confirm with Richard just to confirm that no, Barry was not, as per the minutes.
So through you, Chair, at the last meeting we had a chat about whether or not we wanted Barry Dobson and Robert Reid to be directors. We wanted two councillor directors of Orbers Ridge Management. Against my advice, you said, yes, we do want those two, Barry Dobson and Robert Reid, to be directors of Orbers Ridge Management. Why are we now saying that we only want one councillor to be why have we gone from needing two to just one?
Just a clarification, Mr. Chairman, the articles of both of these companies require 3 directors. So all the report is seeking to do is to complement Orbers Ridge and Gravitas with the same 3 directors, which are myself, Callum Cook and Robert Reid. Barry Dobson was previously a director of Gravitas, so he's stepping down and that post is being replaced with Robert Reid. So the same 3 directors will sit on both each of the companies, which is in accordance with the articles.
Okay, I'm grateful for that clarification. Thank you.
Sorry, if that is the case, I don't want to do the job of the executive, the cabinet or any of the officers for them. But if we want Callum Cook to be a director of Orbers Ridge Management Company, we need to appoint him.
Councillor Cook.
I think we need to seek clarification, but as far as I'm aware, I am already a director of Orbers Ridge.
Not according to Companies House.
Chairman, if I can help, when I last looked about 2 weeks ago on Companies House, Councillor Baxter is correct. There was only Councillor Reid actually listed. So therefore, I think it would be appropriate for this committee today, either through a next paper or if you are happy to take it today, to appoint Richard Wiles and Councillor Cook as directors for Albers Ridge, if you are happy to take a further recommendation. But yes, Councillor Dobson didn't, even after the last committee meeting, the paperwork wasn't completed for him to go on as a director of Albers Ridge. So he doesn't have to step down because he was never actually appointed through Companies House on that. The paperwork was never completed by himself.
Sorry, just to follow up, Chair.
Sorry, so just for clarification, we're amending the recommendation to include Richard Wiles and Callum Cook into this.
Chair, I'd like to oppose that because Richard Wiles is already a director of Albers Ridge Management Company.
Can we get some clarification on the recommendation here?
Sorry, Chairman, that's my mistake.
Okay, so it's Callum Cook and Robert Reid that we're proposing for the directorship here. Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, if I can have a proposer, please. Councillor John Dawson and a seconder, Councillor Susan Saddle. All those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? One abstention. Okay, so that is carried. Okay, we're going to return to Gravitas Housing, but item 7 is the work programme. I have a question on this.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry to go back. Do we need to make a decision about removing Barry Dobson as a director, or does that happen automatically? Companies House still says he is a director of Gravitas Housing.
The recommendation I took to mean that the 3 directors were as stated, has been stated in the minutes and will be reflected in the minutes. So our recommendation will be also to remove Barry Dobson and to have the 3 directors as has been described. Thank you for that. As I say, we will return to Gravitas Housing. Item 7 is the work programme. I'm going to start this. John and I were expecting a report from Invest SK today. Now we were given notice that wouldn't come today. Can I request a verbal update as to where we are with that? As I say, we were originally expecting that today, and when that is going to come before us.
I'm very happy to provide a verbal report now and bring back a formal report at the next meeting. So the team at Invest SK has continued to provide support to businesses throughout the pandemic, and despite the difficulties of doing this remotely through working from home, the small team of officers have provided an excellent service. Presently, the team consists of 4 full-time officers, 2 of which are externally funded, with a number of support functions such as marketing, HR and finance provided for by South Kesteven District Council. After leading on the administration of £51 million of government grants to nearly 3,000 South Kesteven businesses, the business support team at ISK has developed and are managing a £2 million discretionary fund aimed at supporting new business startups and existing businesses looking to diversify and build resilience post-COVID. Currently actively engaged with 120, 97 existing and 23 new businesses, and have so far allocated £300,000. And it is really key that we do spend that £2 million discretionary fund, because if we don't spend it locally in this area, it will go back to the Treasury. So if you know of any businesses that require support, then please do get them to get in touch with our team. I know they're constantly contacting businesses to make sure we get that money out the door. In terms of the Grantham Future High Street Fund, since the appointment of the programme manager in September, a great deal of work has taken place to move the scheme forward. This includes working with the local property owners to identify the upper floor retail units for residential conversion, LCC Highways to bring forward a scheme of works to support highways and public realm improvements, and also with Network Rail and the private sector landowners around the station approach area. In terms of the Historic Action Zone update, the project officer continues to deliver the Grantham Heritage High Street Action Zone in accordance with the requirements of Historic England. A number of positive outcomes already identified in regard to shopfront improvement schemes, civic and community engagement, heritage trails, and also scoping works for key sites and buildings of significant historic interest in the town. The project officer recently presented a progress update to the Rural and Visitor Economy Overview and Scrutiny Committee, for which she received great applause from all members. Some of you will know that later this month, the Stanford Business Club is to relaunch. So in recognition of the need for a dedicated business club for Stanford, ISK are supporting the committee and the newly appointed chair to hold the first meeting in mid-November. And obviously Invest SK are already supportive members of the Grantham Business Club, Born in Business and the Deepings Business Club. So we'll use the best examples to support Stanford and also to bring all 4 chairs together to share best practice across the district. In terms of the Welcome Back Fund, the Future High Street Fund Programme Manager has been supporting the Director of Growth and Culture, Nicola McCoy-Brown, to secure the sign-off of the action plan for the Government Welcome Back Fund, which we'll see is on the Cabinet agenda for next week. And this work has identified just over £250,000 of potential activity to support our high streets across the district, and in particular to promote and support our retail and hospitality sector in the run-up to Christmas. Councillor Charlotte Bellew will obviously know we've got a new tourism officer following the retirement of our previous one. We have successfully recruited to the post of tourism visitor economy officer, and they join the team on the 15th of November. So this will see the team increase to 5 and will help to build the necessary resilience required to meet the current demand from across our business community. In terms of engagement and support function, the manager for Invest SK has continued to engage with and support developers and landowners across the district to bring forward schemes to support the development of the local economy, most notably the relationship with the developers of the recently consented 64-acre Spittlegate employment land. It's enabled the introduction of a number of potential end users to this site, building on the strong relationships and enhanced reputation gained within the business community throughout the pandemic. ISK is now seeing an unprecedented level of inquiries from new and existing businesses, potential inward investors, developers and external funders. And finally, the district is showing a strong recovery post-pandemic, with a number of local property owners reporting high levels of take-up of units, both on the high streets, but also in our industrial sites. And the existing relationship between ISK with those individuals is key to broker those relationships. And supporting SKDC, finally, obviously we've got strong working relationships between the council and the company. They've never been stronger, which is why we have such a seamless approach to delivering the COVID business grants. And it's a true partnership between both of those. And the relationship is equally apparent in working on key council-led projects, such as I'm sure we all know St Martin's Park in Stanford, and finally the former Fenland food site in Grantham, which obviously we are working on.
I'm grateful for that verbal update, Councillor Cook. Can you explain further what work's been done on the business plan? And I'm mindful of the fact that the last business plan we saw is considerably different to all of the good work that you've just described. And what we are going to see at the next meeting in the review of the business plan, and are all of the options about the business plan on the table and being considered? So effectively, my question is, what are we going to see next at the next meeting in relation to the business plan, and what work has been done on that business plan? Thank you.
Thank you. So obviously we've had a review of the company and its functions, and I think when I became leader, I certainly changed what the scope of what the business did, because I felt, I don't know if that's my microphone or not. So yeah, obviously we did amend the scope of what the company did, because I felt that some of the aspects of what the business was actually looking at best suited the council services and certainly the council profile. At the present time, obviously Invest SK is in reality an economic development team promoting economic development and growth, and that's business engagement and intelligence across the district. As a board, we are meeting next week and we'll be reviewing all the options for the future operations of Invest SK, what that looks like, how that works, and how it works with the council. And I'm very happy to share that at the next meeting. But no options are off the table in relation to Invest SK.
Okay, I'm grateful for that commitment and look forward to Invest SK presenting at the next meeting. The other item that we were scheduled to review in greater detail in this meeting were management figures from Environment SK. Robert Reid is fresh in the hotspot there. At what stage are we going to see management figures, and what figures are we going to see, and what work has been done on those figures? Councillor Reid, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I've been keen to attend the committee meeting today and to provide an update in terms of the new leadership and a new approach looking forward. I'd like to foster a positive and collaborative approach with Companies Committee in relation to Environmental SK Limited, and to offer what is always dear to my heart, transparency. And the opening sharing of the relevant information with the Companies Committee. I appreciate previous frustrations. The relationship between the Companies Committee and Environmental SK should be a constructive one that benefits both the Council and indeed Environmental SK Limited. For the delivery of the Council's ground maintenance service perspective, Environmental SK has been a success and has by and large performed well in terms of service delivery. However, Environmental SK Limited does have its issues and has struggled with recruitment and retention, and has been caused by staff shortages. In kind, that is with other organisations across the sector. At the time of talking to you, I've already made the first steps to address this. In terms of the financial position of Environmental SK Limited, I've reviewed the company's accounts, which have raised a number of questions for me, and there are a series of changes that I have asked to be made in their presentation. As part of this, I will be taking a keen interest in the cost base, income levels, cash flow position, and projections. I will be reviewing Environmental SK's business plan, and I would like to reshape alongside the Council's ground maintenance specification and budget. I have only taken on my wider portfolio in the last few weeks. Well, indeed, I've been appointed today, and it's going to take a little time for these changes that I believe is necessary. I therefore ask for patience and support whilst I undertake this work. As the first step, the report before committee members today proposes the appointment of myself, as has been proclaimed, along with Adam Stokes, Paul Wood and Claire Moses as directors, and to join Ken Lyne, who is obviously the only sole trade at the moment. In addition, it is proposed to appoint myself, as has been approved, along with the other personnel directors, to Environmental SK Commercial Limited. Mr. Chairman, at the next meeting, I will bring a financial statement to you and to everybody else.
So again, just to reiterate, we're talking about the work programme here. Next meeting, we're going to see accounts, projections.
Can you just confirm the next meeting? I think I know when it is.
January
It is
25th.
January. That is what I will. Good. That's what I am confirming. I've already made inroads into actually doing that. But I want, as I've said here, I want the presentation style to be transparent and easily interpretable. And indeed, I haven't found it so myself, so I'm going to put it in that order, and I'm going to bring it truthfully, honestly, and transparently to you in January.
Okay, as I say, I don't want to go down to a long discussion about the ins and outs of a company, but what we're going to see in January, you've confirmed, and we look forward to that. Councillor Baxter, specifically about the work programme.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Following up on your questions about Invest SK, last week I was at the Governance and Audit Committee, and I asked how one might, as a councillor or as a member of the public, see the management accounts or the full rather than the summary accounts of Invest SK, and I was told that that wasn't the right meeting to ask. Is this the right meeting to ask? And can we please see the full accounts for Invest SK and also the management accounts for SK, which may well be coming to as part of Councillor Cook's update. But I really don't understand why we can't be sent, as members of the Companies Committee, those accounts today. My other question about Invest SK Councillor Cook mentioned a team of 5. Is that a team of 5 in tourism or a team of 5 across the whole of Invest SK? If it's a team of 5 in tourism, how many staff do Invest SK have? And same question as we asked with Environment SK. Who is the client? Who is managing the client role from the point of view of a SKDC for example, tourism services? I'm pleased to hear that the Invest SK is planning to support Deeping Business Club, because I know that they were pre-pandemic tearing their hair out trying to work out how to extract any money from Invest SK, who to write to, who to ask, and on what colour paper. So I'm really pleased that there's now a better relationship with developing with with Deeping's Business Club. But finally, as Councillor Cook said, Invest SK is, and I quote, in reality, an economic development team, and no options are off the table. Is it an option to bring this back in-house again and kind of reset the clock to where we were with an in-house economic development team that we all understood and which was open and transparent as we were pre-2017? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Baxter, on your final question, that was actually the clear implication in my question about no option, all options being on the table, and I hope to return to that in our January conversation. Going back to the first point, the first, as I said, I don't want to get into a long conversation about Invest SK, because we need to get into a long conversation in January, not a half conversation today. But the first point strikes me as quite an important one. When is the year end for Invest SK? And Richard Wiles, if you could just comment on the availability of figures, please.
The year end aligns with the tax year of the council, so it's the 31st of March. In terms of the financial information, I'm not the director of the company, so I can't really comment on
So
that.
just to confirm then, therefore, final accounts, given they're 9 months after the year end, should be available in line with the Environment SK numbers, and so they should be presented final year-end accounts in January as well.
My understanding is the accounts have been prepared and already audited and will be registered with Companies House imminently.
So in relation, do you want me to answer Councillor Baxter's
Councillor Cook.
questions? Thank you. So it is 5 members in total within that team, within the whole of Invest SK. It is just 1 tourism officer. Nicola McCoy-Brown is the Director of Growth and Culture, is the client. In terms of the Deeping Business Club, I'm disappointed with the comments you made, because I know we have sponsored, I think it was the recent business awards. And I know that if any, I don't think I've ever been contacted by the Deeping Business Club, but I know John is very freely available to speak with anybody that needs support. And I know, tens of thousands of pounds have gone to the Deepings as part of the government's grant schemes. And then the final point is, yes, of course, we can bring the accounts to a future one of these meetings. And similarly, I know Councillor Baxter asked the question about all options on the table, as I answered you. And yes, all options are on the table.
Great. As I say, I'm keen not to get into a half discussion today and save some of these points for a full discussion in January. But I think Councillor Baxter's made some points there that we expect to be commented on in January. Councillor Baxter, if you have any closing remarks on that.
Yeah, Chair, thank all that have commented on it, Richard Wiles and Councillor Cook and yourself. Just tell me the right meeting or the right email address to get full information about the accounts and the transactions of Invest SK. It's public money, it's Southcote Stevens money, I think all of it, and it should be accountable to it's the money from the public person. We should know what it's being spent on. And so far, over the last 2 or 3 years, we've drawn a blank.
I'm grateful for that, and I'm looking forward to seeing those figures in January. And I think we've had it confirmed today that we expect that in low-level detail. Councillor Philip Knowles.
Thank you, Chair. I'm trying to drive to 2 slightly wider points. One, you've stolen my thunder. I've got down here that we ought to, can we not as a body here, initiate discussions about the formation, or what the companies do and what they were planned to do in the beginning, what they are doing now, and what they are planned to do in the future. We get lots of talk about it, some wonderful words about what's going to happen, and we've started doing this and we've started to do that. But one of the agenda items today, supposedly, was to get some accounts for one of the companies and we didn't get it. We didn't get any numbers, not one number. Now, does that mean they're not keeping records of numbers? Of course not. And it takes me on to the second point about the scrutiny committee. We've had a body come in and said, why is scrutiny not working as well as we might? And the reason is the same as happened in the Rural and Communities Committee is the same happening here, because the scrutiny committee asks for information and does not get it. At Rural and Communities, there was an item, one or two items on which said this information, which should have been available, was not available and would be given before Christmas, before December, at the December meeting. We have another meeting in December of Rural and Communities. Here, you as chairman have asked, in the minutes for this to be brought forward on the work programme to today. And people just come and say, well, we're changing or we're in the process of changing a director. Doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't get that information about the numbers. And you're very concentrate so often on the numbers that we get, and we just don't get them. We should have had the numbers up to date as they are now. It doesn't matter who's the director, who's the new director, what the new plan may be that we might get in January. We get a lot of beautiful words about all these things, and we don't get any numbers at any level of scrutiny. And that is what's wrong with scrutiny, because to the cabinet and to the executive, it doesn't matter. Scrutiny doesn't matter. It's an insult to you, Chair, that you ask for something to be put on the work programme and they ask for certain information and we don't get it. And we say, well, we're changing directors, therefore we'll put it back another 3 months or whatever it happens to be. We change directors, so we change directors. It doesn't stop the numbers coming through for the last 6 months, 12 months, whatever, since we haven't had them. And that I perceive to be a wider problem than just the specific.
I'm grateful for the comments, Councillor Knowles. Councillor Cook, obviously Councillor Knowles is commenting there on the Environment SK numbers and reiterating the comments I made earlier on that we were expecting numbers there. If you'd like to comment on
I think personally, I think point of information about, not caring about scrutiny, I think that's an absolute farcical comment from Councillor Knowles. I actually introduced the scrutiny review to this council, and actually the interim results aren't actually as bad as what you might be making out. I think we have more scrutiny committees than most councils in Lincolnshire in terms of what we actually do and look at. Scrutiny is a key part of our role. I didn't interrupt you, Councillor Baxter. Scrutiny is a key part of this council, and I have always supported it. Indeed, I was part of the movement to reintroduce the overview and scrutiny committees into this council when before we had the policy development groups, which really did not scrutinise, in my own opinion. We've had the scrutiny review. The results will be going before this chamber, and then obviously we'll be moving forwards with a new way of scrutiny. In terms of the Environment SK accounts, obviously Ken Lyon is the only existing director here. You will get the accounts in January, likewise with Invest SK as well.
Okay, I'm grateful for that. Are there any other comments on the work programme? I think we've made our opinions very clear there. Councillor Bob Adams.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm puzzled here, not to do with any of the companies specifically, but governance and audit in general. I thought everything to do with accounts, auditing, etc., went to governance and audit. If we're being told now that it doesn't go there and it doesn't come here, I'm totally confused as to what governance and audit is all about.
I can help on that, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification that the question asked last week was in the context of the statement of accounts of the authority. And the point was made that the terms of reference of governance and audit is the statement of accounts for the council, not the statement of accounts or the annual accounts for the companies. That was the point that was being made. So the terms of reference for governance and audit are the council's accounts, nothing to do with the companies.
Thank you for that explanation, Chair.
Okay, are there any other comments on the work programme? Okay, so I'd like to make some progress. Moving on, item 8 is Gravitas Housing Limited. I'm going to make a short statement about, obviously, as everyone's aware, information about this report was erroneously placed in the public domain. Now, I'm pretty sure that the councillors won't want to make political capital out of an oversight by an officer. However, legitimate questions were raised by those figures and report being in the public domain. Therefore, today John and I have decided that we are going to take questions on the full extent of this report. However, there is a however, I would say to members that this is an ongoing concern. It's an ongoing business concern. And I would ask you to be careful of your questions. Everyone knows what the ongoing elements are of this company. And if we stray into those areas, then we will have to take the decision to go into private session. But I am prepared, we are prepared to take questions in the public domain on this. What I would also finally say is that John and I are going to repeat our statement that we said at the last meeting, that on the completion of this project and on the completion of the sales and all of the ongoing processes within Gravitas Limited, we do envisage that we will have a full overview and review of all of the elements and moving parts of this company. So we will return to have a full review of all of the issues and concerns, the successes and failures of this company, and we will do that in the public domain in full. So, okay, with those comments in mind, does any member have any questions? With those comments in mind, I will, this report is in the hands of Kellum Cook.
No, I'm very happy to comment and take some questions on this report. Obviously, the figures are on pink paper, so I'm not going to address those directly in the public meeting. I'm aware they're in the public domain. And obviously, I'm happy to take questions on progress to date and where we are. And I think just as an introduction, though, in terms of the Wherries Lane development, and most private sector developments would aim to make a profit of about 20%. Now, this scheme in Bourne, which was an officer-led project when it was first enacted, was designed with a 5% profit target on this scheme. And that is because it was seen as then as a regeneration project for Bourne Town Centre. It wasn't seen as viable for the private sector, and Gravitas and part of Gravitas's initial aim was to bring forward developments that the private sector necessarily wouldn't do, because we would also benefit in other ways as a council. So as a council, as well as obviously, we have built affordable units in Bourne Town Centre, which will support the footfall into the town. This was an existing site that was in the ownership of the council. Yes, there was some unexpected costs when the development started. In terms of other benefits that we receive as a council for this, we did receive £150,000 in new homes bonus. Obviously, we received the council tax for this scheme. And I think the only thing I would say is that, if the company was to act as a private sector developer, which, in reality is what it should be doing, then the £454,000 of allocation of affordable housing, then I think the company would have challenged this at the time, as would normal developers in terms of the council, in terms of the Section 106. But this has developed a scheme in the Bourne Town Centre for town centre living to support those, as well as help to buy mortgages as well. So it has brought new home owners into Bourne Town Centre. But I'm happy to take questions from members on this scheme. And obviously, where we are is obviously, we are working with our agents in terms of selling the final remaining units on this scheme.
Can I just add some
Richard Wiles.
Some further narrative with the kind of director hat on for Gravitas? This committee has been fully informed as this project's developed throughout. And I think at the last meeting, when we had an update for you, we talked about the townhouses being particularly problematic, and particularly post-pandemic becoming problematic, because they don't have gardens, which at the time of the design, gardens weren't a desirable requirement, but now post-pandemic has become more a requirement. We had a full and frank conversation with the agent, and we had up-to-date valuations done, and you can see from the report that's taken out a further 100,000 from the scheme because of the market not in line with the updated valuations of those 5 townhouses. On the apartment side, it says 3 in the report, but since the report's gone to print, a further offer's come through, so we're actually down to 2 apartments. So in total, there's 7 now available units on the whole site. And as Callum Cook, I was going to say council then, but you're not a councillor on this, are you? Mr. Cook said, there are new homes bonus receipts from it. There are council tax receipts from it. You see in the pink papers, which I won't talk to, there's finance costs to the council, which is the commercial element of the loan. So that's income to the council. There is the recharge from the council to the company. So all of these costs going on to the company are to the benefit of the council, but clearly are bringing down the profit margin of the scheme. And then finally, as has been said, the 106 was at the upper end of the negotiation and was nearly £500,000. So all these costs going into the company have delivered the outcomes of the 25 apartments in the town, but have been to the detriment of the overall profitability of the scheme. And as working on the 5% margin from the outset, clearly any volatility in those costings are going to be very sensitive to the bottom line. What I would also say is that that's a projected profit and loss. That's not the reality. We're not looking backwards here. We're looking forward and projecting forward. So there is further cost avoidance the company will undertake, such as repaying the loan as and when sales come through, which will mitigate further the financing costs. So it is a watching brief on this, and as we've done up to this point, we'll continue to update the company's committee accordingly.
Okay, are there any questions in the room? Councillor Philip Knowles.
Thank you, Chair. I'm fully aware, and I think everybody is, of the benefits that aren't seen on a piece of paper like this. The return of council tax and all the other bits and pieces, and I recognise it as a fairly successful piece of building, even if we did get the fact that townhouses are not going to sell. Somebody misjudged that at the beginning, but we can't complain about that. But it's been originally, when I joined this council, which isn't too long ago, this was sort of a blueprint for something that was going to happen in the future. This was going to be a major part of a process of making the council self-sufficient by 2025. And the profit, you say, was only 5%. I appreciate that in the first instance. But on top of all the other benefits that came back to the council, that would have been a considerable achievement at 5%. But unfortunately, it's not achieved that in any way. The construction costs, and you said there were difficulties, the construction costs took out all the planned, the budgeted gross profit. So the gross profit from the budget was 400,000 and the construction costs were £400,000 more than we would. So we were already by then in substantial difficulty. So it was a project that's not gone well from start to finish. Given that there are other benefits and so on, I'm assuming now that Gravitas is not a plan or a blueprint for the future for other places. And I'm assuming that once Gravitas is now put to bed, and I think you said those words earlier on, I've written them actually down, when it's satisfactorily completed, that was the purpose of Gravitas now. I assume then that it will be closed down as a separate company, and any future plans of this nature are reviewed by the full council as a full council before they ever go ahead with through a subsidiary company. I appreciate what it's done. I appreciate the benefits, but it's a shambles, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Sorry, can I just make the point? No decisions have been taken on the future direction of the company, because that's a council decision as the primary shareholder of that company. But in terms of it was seen as the blueprint for the future, I'm not sure that's a fair reflection of the reason for doing so. As already been stated, the company was primarily set up in the first instance to stimulate regeneration and bring forward sites that the private sector wouldn't otherwise bring forward. And as has already been said, there was not enough profit in this scheme from the outset for any private sector company to take this forward. And that's just why the council intervened. Now, clearly the market at that time is vastly different from the market today. So whether or not there's a future for this company, I think is yet to be agreed and debated. But it was here to serve a purpose, which may not be required in the future. But I don't think in looking at this scheme as a single scheme should be its only factor when taking into consideration the future direction of any other business plans.
Okay, are there any other questions? Councillor Ashley Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. I've followed this all the way along. I went to the inaugural meeting of the shareholders committee that preceded the invention of Gravitas, and it was going to be all things to all people. It was going to be an amazing transformation of the way local government works, and so on and so forth. It then kind of became funneled into a housing development or developments or a housing developer. And Councillor Knowles is quite right. It's an embarrassment. It's lamentable. It hasn't worked, and I think we should put hands up and say that. Councillor Cook or Mr. Cook, whichever you prefer, said that it has brought forward affordable houses. By that, do we mean the houses do we mean the apartments, or do we mean the affordable houses which were tagged on as part of the 106? There were some houses that were allocated when it came to planning as part of the 106 on, is it Orchard Close or Apple Close or yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they're not built yet, are they? I don't think they're built yet. And when will they be built? When will we get the true benefit of this 106 information? My next question was about pipeline projects. When we were first stepping down the Werrys Lane route, we were told that there were some other pipeline projects in the process. I don't know whether that included St Martin's Park or where else we were planning to be a kind of big tough housing developer, but where are they now? Where will we, when and who will make the decision about the future direction of Gravitas? If we're not going to put it to bed or wrap it up, if we are going to consider where it might go next, is that something that comes here to this committee? If so, where is it on the work plan? Because if we are going to have another crack at it, and I don't have an opinion as to whether we should or we shouldn't, but if we are going to have a crack at it or put it to bed, we should make a decision, and probably it should be in our work plan here. I'd just like to point out that the construction costs that we're using as a reason why it hasn't gone quite to plan, the construction was concluded pre-pandemic, so we can't say that it's because people don't like gardens. And I take that with a pinch of salt, really, whether or not people have changed their mind about not having a garden purely because of the pandemic. I think the 5 townhouses, it's obviously a problem that we can't shift these 5 townhouses, and I don't know whether it's price, I don't know whether it's a estate agent, I don't know whether it's, I don't know what the reason is. And I don't really understand why we can't just take them on as a council and put some people in them. We've got 1,500 people on our council house waiting list. Why can't we use these councils that we effectively own to house people house families who need houses? I don't understand why that's beyond our purview. And finally, in paragraph 1.7, we talk about the part repayment of £900,000 to reduce the interest payable. I assume that SKDC has accepted that renegotiation of the loan, but the remainder of the loan, are we going to get it back?
Yeah, there's a number of questions there, but in terms of the future direction of the Gravitas company, then clearly, yes, this will come back to this committee for debate. The proposal was there was a pipeline of projects. Those projects are still there. They were debated at this committee previously. Gravitas, in terms of any other proposals around a business plan, will bring those forward for the council for consideration. For example, Stonebridge Road was one of the sites that at that time, Gravitas had a proposal that he could develop that site on behalf of the council. Now, the council may have different views now as to whether the market is buoyant enough for the private sector to intervene. I go back to the point that Gravitas was intercepting where the market was failing. If there's no market failure anymore, then clearly there isn't a role for Gravitas. Gravitas doesn't want to compromise the private sector or compete against it. It wanted to fill in the gaps where the market wasn't delivering. Now, the world has moved on, and that may no longer be the primary objective of this company. I didn't comment on the construction, so I'm not suggesting in any way that's the primary reason for why the profit margin on this development has been compromised. I gave a number of other outcomes, positive outcomes financially, that all the time are hitting the bottom line of this the accounts. In fact, I would suggest the report itself is quite clear as to why the profit margin has been eroded, which is the reduction from the agent's view on the townhouses. They're the ones telling us about the gardens. I'm not forming a judgment about that. I'm being told the market intelligence from the professionals is that people now want gardens. And at the time the architects designed this scheme, people didn't want gardens. I haven't got a view as to whether that's right or wrong. I'm only replaying what the professionals in the field are telling us. What we are seeing is we've had to reduce those townhouses down. And you can see in the report, we've said that's around 100,000 that we're saying will need to be taken off those valuations. Yes, the loan can be fully repaid, which again, why the projected profit and loss takes it into a difficult place, because Gravitas will completely fulfill its obligation in terms of repaying that loan. It wasn't a case of the council and Gravitas negotiating the repayment of the loan. The loan has always been positioned that the council said to Gravitas, here's the loan, repay it within a maturity period, which is actually 15 years. What Gravitas has done is said, actually, we've got some money in the bank here. We'll repay it, part repay it now, which will head off some of the loan interest that will be accrued otherwise. So that was just a commercial arrangement that was set up between the council and the company right at the start of all this. Was there any other points?
The benefits of the section 106, have they been realised?
So in the HRA programme, the 106 contribution is going towards one of the developments. It's in Manning Road. I wanted to say Manning Road. Manor Court in Bourne. So, okay, Meadow Court in Bourne. So it's a financing contribution towards the delivery of that HRA scheme. That's where that money is going. So it's staying in the location of Bourne.
And are those houses complete? Or okay, just
sorry, I misheard that. Are those complete then? And I'm
they're
sure
not
at the planning,
complete, but nearly complete.
I'm sure at the planning meeting there was a talk about it was either an orchard or an apple, or have I got the wrong end of the stick? There's no orchard. There's no orchard in Bourne.
I'm sure there's many orchards in Bourne, but not in this one. No, there was 4 Help to Buy flats as well as part of the original development as well.
Yeah.
Just to return to a couple of Councillor Baxter's other points, the pipeline of projects, without going into those pipeline of projects, because I remember they were all discussed in private session. What has happened to that pipeline of projects? Have they been mothballed now? Have they been put on hold? Where are we with those?
Well, without mentioning individual sites. So, I mean, some are obviously going to be developed by the private sector. I mean, in terms of Gravitas and I suppose
Councillor Baxter's point is, will they return to this committee?
If that is where, I think there needs to be a discussion about what the future of Gravitas is once this development is concluded, and then it's a determination of to where we go next with this company. Should we think that the market still needs intervention? I mean, one example is the council put forward and has now got outline planning permission on St. Martin's Park. That didn't need a company to do that, but we have made a substantial financial return, as well as bringing new homes and business space to one of our towns in the district.
And the final question of Councillor Baxter's, unless I've missed anything, was he had a question about whether the housing revenue account could just buy these units.
Gravitas has certainly looked into the rental sector. Of course, they're owned by Gravitas, they're not owned by the council, so they'd have to be almost sold by Gravitas to the council. But if they went into the HRA, then we're into right to buy territory, which I'm not sure that's where we want to go. But if Gravitas rented them out, then there's a whole issue which we've had professional advice on in terms of taxation implications. All the input tax would have to be reimbursed back. I think I put that in the previous report, actually. I seem to recall those words in the June report. We did talk about what the rental market might be, but it seriously compromises the input tax, which would be reimpayable back to the inland revenue, which further damages the bottom line. So I think that one has been looked at and been exhausted, really.
I see. So deterioration of the bottom line. And just the most important point there, just to reiterate the point you said, that you do envisage the loan will be repaid in full. Okay, thanks for putting that on the record. Are there any other questions in the room? Councillor Mark Whittington.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I kind of in a bit of two minds about this, because obviously, looking at the figures on the pink paper, I won't go into too much detail about them, but obviously, you know, we were forecasting to make a small profit of about 5-6%, and obviously we're not now. And actually, if you look at the difference, the actual movement on the variance between the forecast profit and the forecast loss, it's almost exactly the same as the increase in the construction costs. It's £2,000 difference. And obviously, you know, I think the point's already been referred to that, you know, the private sector wouldn't look at any of these types of schemes with anything less than a 20% initial forecast profit because of contingency costs. You know, the fact that construction costs and whatever do tend to potentially do increase during developments, and obviously, you know, a private sector company would probably have quite a different approach to a contingency reserve. But on the plus side, obviously, you know, we've got the new homes bonus that's come on the back of this. We've got the Section 106 monies as well. So there seems to be sort of overall, there are other benefits that probably are reflected in terms of the pink paper. I'm just wondering, Mr. Chair, when we do have our final review at the end of all of this, that maybe some of those other costs, the new homes bonus, the money from the 106 monies could be included in the numbers, even if it's just below the bottom line here, just so we can see those other costs, so we can in effect look at the scheme in its entirety, if that makes sense, rather than just the actual bit that Gravitas did. Yeah, it is, and I think it does kind of pose questions for us going forward about, because I think the point's already been made that this increase in construction costs was pre-pandemic, and we know post-pandemic that an awful lot of building companies are coming back and quotes in terms of costs are increasing by 15-20% post-pandemic because there's issues in the supply chain, you know, there's shortages of bricks and building materials and whatever. So of course, going forward, any other potential schemes obviously could really have to build in the fact that we are in a different economic world than we were pre-pandemic in terms of the cost of these projects. So in theory, so it could make any future developments now, even from now, economically unviable because of this increase in construction costs. So it is. Unfortunately, I won't go into too much details on the pink papers, obviously, because I don't want us to have to go into private session. But I would just like really to make the point that maybe when we do look at the final report on this, that we do look at some of the benefits that have come that are ancillary to that, and the sort of the financial impact of those, to kind of look at this in the round, if that would be possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Cook.
No, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I know it was, you know, incorrectly or inadequately, you know, reported, I think what most of us read, but no, we can certainly put this information into the public domain. There is some key aspects of this development that aren't in this paper. I mean, in terms of the construction costs on this, I mean, Councillor Whittington is absolutely right. You know, the construction costs across the industry are substantially higher now than what they used to be. However, when we were developing this scheme, there was an area of contaminated land that, despite the surveys that were undertaken, the contamination levels were worse in I think it was one aspect of the site than what we forecast, which is why we did have a cost in terms of construction for that area.
Okay, are there any other questions in the room? I'd just like to add a couple of comments to that. We've spoken about construction costs and differences in the forecast and budget of revenue elements here, but we've seen no detail. I would actually like to see some detail on that if there's some detail that can be provided in future, please. And we can help by determining what that detail is. The point that Councillor Whittington made about the other benefits is something that this committee's raised every single time this report's been in front of us, that we're told that there are, at least now we have 3 bullet points, but I'd like to see some numbers on these. Presumably, if there are 25 new town centre homes in Bourne, they're all paying council tax. Some of that's accruing to this council. We can put numbers on some of these. There are some numbers on the positive side that that we can see, and we still have not got those numbers. I mean, as I say, I have lost count of the number of times I've asked for more detail on the other benefits that we keep requesting. So I'm going to carry on pushing you with that. And certainly when it comes to the final review, I would like to see both sides of the ledger. And I think that we're, from a council's perspective, underreporting the positive side, even though there are a number of us that I think have had concerns about the viability and the direction of this from day one. But nevertheless, the key question is there's 8 units remaining. When are we estimating that we can have that full and frank discussion, i.e. when do we believe that we can get these 8 units sold and move on with this project? What are our present time horizons?
I mean, just from my perspective, as I think I said in part of my introduction, one of those has already been reserved since this report was written. So we're actually down to 5 townhouses and 2 apartments. So we're at 7 now. The relaunch of the new valuations was done barely 6 weeks ago. And again, the report confirms there's been an acceleration of interest in the townhouses since that valuation has been relaunched and remarketed. Open days have been arranged, etc., etc. I think it's incredibly difficult to say when will we get to the end, because it's obviously in the hands of the market. It's not in the hands of the directors of the company. We can continue to update, but we'll obviously just keep progressing the activity around the marketing of those units.
I think just to add, we are in constant contact with our agents on this. They are aggressively advertising it in terms of promotional activity, in terms of it's on. Yeah, thank you. It is on Rightmove and which is, as somebody buying a house at the minute, that is where everybody goes primarily to look for properties. So it is being actively marketed to sell the final units on this scheme.
Okay, are there any other questions in the public domain? I'm happy to also move into private session if any member feels necessary. Councillor, any other questions? Councillor Knowles.
Just a brief comment. If we're looking at the thing in the round, and as I said, I accept the benefits of some of the scheme there. We should look at the cost of services as well, not just we've got X £1,000 extra in taxes and so on and so forth. But there's a cost to that as well, and we should look at the total in the round, not just let's say, well, this is cash. Otherwise, I want some back for my bit, because if we're getting an extra £200,000 but not spending anything else, then there's something coming back to me and everybody else involved.
I entirely agree, Councillor Knowles. I think we need to push these numbers far further to get a proper impression of the successes and failures of this project, the direction, and how we've got to where we are today. Are there any other questions in the room? Councillor Saddle.
These are only forecast figures, so they are not showing us actually what will happen at the end. And I know they've got less to sell, but surely there must be a time limit on. You can't, 12 months, 2 years down the line, you still could have not sold some of these houses. There must be a point when you must say, right, we'll give it 6 months and then we'll make a decision whether we continue down this road with this company, or whether we say, well, we've just got X amount to sell. We say that's it, end of story. There must surely be some sort of time limit on it.
Remembering that we're in public session at the moment, I suppose the question here is, has there been stress testing of the numbers? Richard, can you just comment upon the stress testing of the numbers? As a reminder, we are in public session here.
Well, in terms of the valuations on the properties, obviously we're taking advice from the market leaders in terms of what they're advertised at. We continue to discuss as a board with our agents the selling programme for those units. And we are reviewing it on a very regular basis. I don't want to see these properties on the books for probably more than 6 months, but obviously the market's got to decide, and obviously potential buyers as well. But I know certainly we are working with our agents to dispose of the final units.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any other questions in the room? Now, as I say, there is a pink paper here. Do any members require us to go into private session where they, with the exclusion of press and public, to ask further questions? Okay, no member is indicating as such. So I'd like to make some progress. John and I will follow up with the directors and get another update as to when that comes back to us. So item 9 on the agenda, are there any other items of business in the room? There are no other items of business in the room. It's now around about 3:30, and I thank everyone for their time today and bring this meeting to a close. Thank you.